suppose this question we haven't really prepared for, but I suppose how did that feel? And are you do you feel more used to kind of presenting now on in video format? And would you kind of, in future, would you be against doing a video about your research and putting it out there for people to see? Has it given you that experience, I suppose?
Yeah, I think I'm much more confident about being in front of the camera now than I was before, because I don't like, I mean, even looking at myself now, I hate it. But actually, people aren't really scrutinizing you as like the human form. They're just listening to what you've got to say. And that the FameLab experience kind of got me used to that, because because you filmed all the time doing the masterclass. You filmed doing, like, we were filmed walking around the Cheltenham Festival site and everything. So
Oh,
it
really?
was just like being a superstar. It was like being famous, to be honest.
And how did you feel with regards to the video? And I know kind of researchers say to us that when they're up on stage, or even when they're stood in front of a camera for the first time, it's really daunting. How did you feel the first time that you did it? And do you have any kind of tips for people when it comes to kind of being video recorded?
Yeah, what can I say? I think when you're on the stage and you're being recorded, you're not conscious of that, because you're thinking about like what you're saying. And I think as part of the masterclass, they got a journalist to come and do some training with us, and we were filmed by a professional camera person that does the news and all that kind of thing. And that was quite daunting at first, because they wanted to analyze your video once you'd done it, and like knowing that you had to watch yourself back was the most daunting thing. It's not actually standing in front of the camera and saying what you're saying. It's having to kind of look at it post video and kind of go through what your mannerisms are and how you coped with the questions and that kind of thing. But it was so good, because it just gave you that confidence. Because actually I think people are conscious about how they look, but it's not about how you look. It's about what you're saying more than anything. And people are focusing what's coming out of your mouth rather than if you look beautiful.
Oh, great. Thank you for that. So obviously you've just done FameLab. You were the East Midlands Hub FameLab Regional winner. So what was it like? What was the process like? I suppose, what were your kind of motivations for taking part, and how did you deal with maybe the nerves as a result of doing the competition?
um I saw the doctoral school at Lincoln University put out like an advert saying, "Oh, are you interested in kind of improving your presentation skills and speech writing and that kind of thing?" And I thought, well, yeah, I'm really interested in doing that. And I didn't, to be honest, really know what FameLab was. And I didn't look it up. I just thought, I'll write an abstract
Yep.
and send it in. And then it took ages for them to come back to me. I think I must have written the abstract in September, October, and I didn't hear till December, January time. And then we had that training that you put on at Nottingham Trent, online training. And that was okay. But then when it came to at the end of that training, when you said, "Oh, now you need to send us a video," and I was like, "Oh no, I really don't want to. I don't want to send myself a video. I send a video of myself, because that's just really cringy." So I sat on it for ages, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. And I thought I'd missed the deadline, to be honest. And then I got an email from Tammy, who's the coordinator, isn't she? And so we've made a mistake with the deadlines. It's actually tomorrow, not today. And I was like, oh, so that's like fate intervening. And then I got an email from our research and impact officer, because I've worked with her before, and when I was doing stuff for the doctoral school, and she said, "Oh, you're going to put a video in, Nicki." And I was like, "Oh, I suppose I better had now, because like two people have now said go for it." And that was the most daunting thing. I think the first video, because I got my friend to record me, because I didn't want to do it myself, because I can't. If I'd have been looking at myself recording, I wouldn't have been able to do it. And I think having someone record you is easier, because you're not looking at yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And so, how did you deal with the nerves with regard to the competition as a whole?
Right. Well, I was completely nerve-wracked. When I came to Nottingham for the regional finals after I got through, I was like, well, I'm not supposed to be here, especially when I'm a social scientist and it like traditionally it's just like natural sciences that have been, and this is the first year for social science. I was like, well, nobody's going to want to hear what I've got to say because it's about education. It's not about proper science. And people were talking about, and I didn't speak first, and people were talking about cancer cures and dinosaurs. And I'm like, oh my God, well, who's going to want to? And so when they started announcing the winners, and I was like, well, it's not going to be me. And then my name was called. I think that was the most nerve-wracking point because thinking, oh my God, now I've got to go and do it somewhere else. I've done this
Mm,
once now. But yeah, I was really, really nervous and really, really petrified is the word I would use for that, the regional final. But yeah, but it made me get out of my comfort zone.
yeah, absolutely. And did you kind of use any techniques to help you calm those nerves before you kind of got up and presented? And I
Um,
suppose building on from that, did you feel less nervous when you presented at the national final, or did you feel more pressure?
I didn't feel more pressure. I felt better at the national final than I did at the regional final because of all the training that they give you and all the support they give you at FameLab, um, which is really amazing. And kind of doing all that training in front of video, like being videoed and kind of having to do your speech so many times at the training and kind of getting feedback and saying, well, you can improve it this way, you can improve it that way. I think I felt more prepared for the UK final than the East Midlands final.
Yeah.
And I think coping strategies, I just thought, well, I know what I'm talking about, hopefully. So I'm just gonna just do that and try not to worry about if I if I forget some words, nobody
Mm,
knows I've forgotten those words because they don't know what I was going to say in the first place. And I think that's a really good technique to have. Like, don't worry if you think, oh, I haven't said what I wanted to say because nobody knows that's what you were going to say anyway. So don't get kind of bound up in that. Just think, oh, well, I've not said that. So just move on to the next point.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. Great. Thank you for that. And what did your family and friends think to your presentation?
My partner thinks I'm controversial
Why?
because I'm talking about stuff that people don't want to acknowledge quite a lot of the time. So, like, I'm talking about working class girls being left behind in education and how we don't kind of acknowledge that they aren't getting the education that they deserve. And I do talk about how education may be skewed in favor of boys. And he says, some people might not like that. They might find that difficult to, especially in a public setting, which
Mm,
Cheltenham Science Festival is a public setting. So there's members of the public there. They might not all always agree. It's not like being in your ivory tower at university. Um, my mum and dad didn't really, I've not really spoken to them about it, although they were just very proud that I'd got through to the
absolutely.
final.
And
Yeah.
they were all in the audience supporting you then, Nikki, on the
Well,
day.
my partner was, my mum and dad were, but my partner came with me. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Great. Brilliant. And what have you gained overall from the FameLab experience, would you say?
Um, Confidence, definitely confidence. Um, and I've learned how to write 3 minutes of research that's engaging to the members of the public rather than being kind of a 10-minute, 15-minute presentation that you do at conferences and stuff like that. So
Mm.
3 minutes where you kind of engage the audience, you make them laugh a little bit, but also you've got the seriousness of what you're saying as well. Um, and that's all down to like the masterclass training, basically.
And has it made you think about kind of the different ways in which you can communicate your research?
Definitely, because I think as an academic or like doing a PhD and stuff, you've told that, oh, to have your research heard, you've got to go to conferences and present in this kind of very kind of formulaic way. And I think doing the FameLab, it shows you how you can communicate in different ways. You can do podcasts, you can do kind of, blog posts about your research rather than just kind of going out to conferences and talking about it in a very kind of formal way. And it's more engaging for people.
Great. And yeah, what did presenting at FameLab give you that maybe presenting in a research environment doesn't, do you think?
Interesting question. I felt it was more fun.
Okay.
It was more in a like a narcissistic way. It was more about me and kind of how I presented myself rather than my research. So it was about kind of being appealing to the audience, I think. I don't know if that makes sense. Um, it wasn't as research heavy.
Okay.
Obviously, I researched it and I know what I was talking about, but I wasn't relying on other people's references. I wasn't relying on kind of quoting other people. I was just relying on kind of getting this message into that 3 minutes, which is different to when you're presenting at a conference where you kind of have to acknowledge, not that you shouldn't acknowledge people, but you've got to go back and say, well, this is where I've got my idea from.
Yeah.
So it's a bit more about what you think personally about what you're talking about.
And I suppose building on from that, has it actually enabled, have you kind of learnt skills that you can now take back to the research environment and improve upon how you communicate within that research setting?
Yeah, I think being more relaxed actually. I've done one conference presentation since then, and I think I was trying to engage the audience a little bit more and be a bit more kind of relaxed and like put a couple of jokes in, which I wouldn't have done before. I would be completely like, this is my research and I'm telling you all about it.
Yeah, in
Whereas with
quite a formal
FameLab, it's
way.
more it's more kind of engaging, I think. So I would carry that forward, I think, and try to kind of get a mix between the formality of what I'm doing, but also kind of trying to engage. Because I think if you engage the audience in that setting, in that formal setting, you're more likely to carry them with you as well.
Yeah, great. And I suppose for those that are listening or watching, what would you say to those that are considering applying for FameLab?
Oh, definitely do it. Definitely. Um, it's just been an amazing experience. Really, really amazing experience. I've met some amazing people along the way, really talented people from all different areas of research, down to like the Cheltenham Festival people, the FameLab people. They're just inspirational. And even if you only take that away with you, like meeting new people and kind of seeing the world in a different way, but it also makes you reassess how you present as well and helps you be a more confident communicator. So yeah, definitely go for it. And don't be scared of sending that video in, because I think that is the biggest thing. I
Mm,
think that's the biggest obstacle. When somebody says, we need a video of yourself, of you, I think that's where everybody stumbles.
yeah.
And I think don't be afraid. Just get somebody to record you so you don't have to look at your face.
And has it as a bit of a byproduct, and you touched on this earlier on about, you were sat in the green room with a bunch of other presenters who were maybe more STEM based, and
Yeah,
there was some imposter phenomena creeping in about I shouldn't
yeah,
be here. Has it
yeah,
made you realize that actually, as a social scientist, your research has equal impact to
yeah,
all of the other bits of research that are out there as well?
definitely. And even like the head of the FameLab Cheltenham Science Festival coordinator, Marike, she came up to me and said, it's so amazing that we've got a social scientist in the final, because she said that I'm a scientist, a natural scientist, but she said, but to have social science in is just the way we want to go because it's really valid. And so many people came up to me afterwards of the UK final, and even though I didn't win, saying how they thought what I was talking about was really like poignant and really pertinent to how they'd experienced education as well. So yeah, I definitely think that imposter syndrome is, I wouldn't say it's gone away, but it's kind of
Mm,
getting better.
great. And you touched on the regional final there, and were you kind of one of the only social scientists at the regional final?
I think I was the only social scientist at the regional final, and I was the only social scientist at the UK final. So I think I'm the only social scientist that's ever got through, which I can call myself a pioneer. No big head here.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And obviously you won the regional final. You went on to present at the national final.
Yeah.
Talk to us about what your experience was like. Maybe talk through kind of how the day went. What did you do? Um, the conversations that you had with other people. How did you feel like the presentation went? Yeah, talk us through that.
Um, so the day we started about 12, so we got there the night before. What I've got to say about the FameLab experience is that even you get everything paid for. So that's another reason to do it. Accommodation, food, that kind of thing. So that's a by the by. But yeah, so we got there the night before, but we didn't meet till 12. We met in the green room. Um, and those famous people there. It was amazing. So like Jamal Khalili, if you've heard of him, Dara O'Brien, that kind of people kind of in the green room with us as the Fame Labbers. So that was really exciting. We had a sound check, so we had to go to the theatre where we were doing our presentation. So we did a sound check. We were then filmed on the Cheltenham Festival site, going around the exhibition. So they had this place called the Maker Shack, where it was all like science experiments. So they filmed us doing these different experiments with the children that were there and everything, which was really good. Um, then we went back to the theatre for, just to kind of set up and that kind of thing. And somebody's with you all day. So you have Kazana, who is the kind of the coordinator of the day, and she just spends the whole day with the finalists and make sure we're all right, um, making sure we've got everything we need, food, water, props, tables, chairs. It's a proper production. It's
Mm.
proper, it's professional. Do you know what I mean? It's like being you're in a theatre and there's sound and there's lighting and everything. So you have to go through all that. And that's nerve-wracking because you're thinking, this is really real. So when you're in this on the stage and doing your sound checks and everything, it's like, this is actually happening.
Absolutely. And so when you kind of were called on stage, how many people roughly do you think were kind of watching the event in the audience kind of in person? How many
I
of
think
you were presenting as well?
there was 8 finalists, and I think there
Okay.
was about 400 in the audience. It was full. The theatre was full. It was a small theatre. I'm not saying it's like a grand, huge theatre, but yeah, it's still like daunting. So what happened is we were sat to the side so we could watch each other.
Hmm.
And then like we were called up like discreetly to go backstage and then come on. And then there was a compere, a comedian, who did like a little kind of a little in between bits and introduced us and said what we were talking about and all that kind of thing. And she was great. And I can't remember her name, which is really bad.
We can find a name, don't
Yeah.
worry, we can find a name.
And she was great as well because she was nervous too. And she's like, I'm nervous, you're nervous, it's fine. This is, we'll be fine together. And yeah, we were. So we had like a face mic on, and yeah, could get called on, and then you just as soon as you get called on and you get told as soon as you start speaking, the 3 minutes starts. because obviously it's a competition and you can only speak for 3 minutes. So if you go over, you get disqualified. So we had like a laptop in front of us that the audience couldn't see with the timings on, and my timer stopped, and I was like, oh my
Oh
God.
no.
Well, it didn't stop. The screen went blank. I'm thinking, oh my goodness. But I kept going and it came back on and I was still in time. So I finished 2 minutes 59, which was like perfect. But yeah,
Perfect.
so
Great. And
yeah.
how many times did you practice?
So prior to the East Midlands final, I didn't really practice, I have to say. I was just listening to myself. So I'd recorded myself saying it.
Yeah.
But for the actual final, I wrote myself a proper script and I recorded it, but I also color coordinated my script that I could see, so I knew which section when and
Yeah.
like what time it was. And I just memorized it. And I think that you just need to memorize your script. And it took me about 2 weeks to memorize it. And I could tell you now, but I won't bore you with it now.
Yeah, we can all watch back the FameLab competition on
Yeah,
YouTube, can't we? So
yeah.
yeah, check out Nicky's video. And with regards to that presentation, Nicky, can you tell us how you developed your presentation from the East Midlands Regional Final to the National Final? How did it develop and alter?
Um, it altered quite a lot, but the essence was still there. But I think, as I spoke about earlier when I was talking about making it more engaging and having, so at the masterclass, this is part of like the prize that you get. You go down to Cheltenham before the festival, a few weeks before, and you have a whole weekend in Cheltenham. And you get trained by previous FameLabbers. We got input from a journalist. We got input from somebody who's a podcaster about how to write a script. And so we have this. So he talked about hook, line, and sinker. So you need to have a hook, and like your middle bit's your line, and then your sinker is hooking back, kind of linking back to what you hooked at the beginning. And so that is how I improved it, by kind of having that structure, which I
Mm,
didn't have at the regional final. I don't think, I just kind of spoke.
yeah.
Whereas I kind of had sections where I moved through the speech in a bit much more kind of purposeful way, I think.
Great. And so overall, have you changed the way in which you do things? Or will you, if you haven't, will you change the way in which you do things as a result of your kind of overall FameLab experience?
I think so, yeah. I think when I'm thinking about writing, it's a different process, I think, to presenting at a conference, which I talked about earlier. But I think you can use some of the elements about kind of trying to using that hook, line, and sinker kind of idea, hook the audience, and then kind of end with that sinker where you link back to it. And I think that's really important, that kind of having that structure. Because I think because I do a bit of lecturing as well, I think when you're a lecturer, you kind of just speak to
Mm,
your presentation.
yeah.
Um, and I think the FameLab experience has taught me how to kind of be more engaging, I think, as a presenter.
And you say that you do some lecturing, have your students noticed a change,
Oh, I don't
would
know
you
because I've
say?
not. Well, I've not seen any of them because it was after term broke up, wasn't it? So
Oh, okay. Okay. So maybe next academic year
yeah, I'll get
they
some
may
feedback.
notice a change. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it'd be really interesting, wouldn't it?
yeah, definitely. I
Bro.
think, yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, sorry, go on, Nikki. What were you
No, no,
gonna
no, I can't.
add
No,
to
it doesn't
that?
matter. No, no, it's
That's
fine.
okay. Great. So thanks very much. Thanks for agreeing to this interview. And well done for being our regional winner and for participating in the national final. Yeah, fantastic stuff. And we can really see that it's really benefited you.
Yeah,
So thanks very much, Nikki, for speaking to me today.
you're welcome. I've like enjoyed it.